Hey YouTube. It's a pretty bright day today in Pennsylvania. A little bit of clouds. We had 3 inches of snow last night, which I plowed already. And I got to pull some maintenance on the backhoe. I'm going to grease it. And greasing is not a hard thing to do. And normally I wouldn't make a video about it, but maybe, you know, there's some young guys or whatever, that, or anybody that just never really greased anything before. And I'll just give you a little bit of an idea of what I do and stuff. First of all, the tools you need are pretty simple. A grease gun of some sort, some rags, and a small screwdriver. And the screwdriver, like on this board, there's a grease fitting in here. So what you basically want to do is just run the screwdriver around it so you can get the head of the gun on the fitting really well. And then I usually put about 4 pumps in there. And that's good enough. You don't want to overdo it. You can see I've overdone it in the past a couple of times and everything is black around there from grease. But I'll give you a little close up here. For instance, I don't know if you can see that in there. Like right inside here, this is a grease fitting here. And Ford's done a pretty good job of keeping them from getting hurt. So now sometimes if you can't pump into them, it's not that the grease fitting is bad right away. Sometimes it is if you lay this hose down in dirt and you get dirt in the hose and you pump it into the grease fitting, you can pack them with dirt and then they won't work too well. But normally if you can't pump a fitting, if you move the machine, like if you move the bucket up or down or rest the bucket on the ground, you'll find that you might have an easier time of putting grease into the fitting. This Ford has quite a few fittings on it here. And I used it to do the entire backhoe. I just put the tube of grease in here. And the one thing you should know is we used to track the repair and maintenance of equipment. So when pins and bushings, which is this part here, the pin that goes through the piston, and the bushings that, you know, hold the pin in place, we used to track that information as to how often they were replaced. Now, right now inside here, because it's cheap and it's close, I buy grease at Tractor Supply. It's called Traveler's Multi-Purpose. It's okay. It's not the best grease there is. What we found out after 20 years of tracking grease, believe it or not, is that a company by the name of Lubriplate. It's a gray and black bucket. You used to get it in 5-gallon buckets or cartridges. Was the best grease that we could find to keep the pins and stuff lasting their longest, especially on equipment that did the same motion all the time, like a backhoe digging water pipe or sewer pipe. So, just to give you an idea, and usually all of the fittings here, all of the pistons will have a grease fitting at each end. Like I say, you want to wipe the dirt out of the fitting. It's a little hard to pump. Sometimes you have to hold the hose on. What I do is I'll put the hose on, sort of snaps on. If it don't stay on, you gotta kind of be a little ambidextrous here to get it on there. As far as grease falling on the ground, let me just tell you, my wife hates it because if there's anything that you'll track for sure into the house with you, even if you take your shoes off like I do, as soon as you step in the door, it's grease. It's not fun for them to clean up. fitting here is in a pretty nice handy spot there, right on the top there. So, like I say, it's not really difficult to do. It's just a matter of knowing where all the fittings are. There in the line, I can feel it not pumping. Could be from the cold weather too. I can feel that it's not pumping, so release it a little bit. Now you got to be careful with pressure on the grease. You don't want to let the head completely off there. Sometimes it'll let the air out and the grease will come forward. Okay, there it is. So if the grease doesn't want to come out of the gun, and sometimes on cold weather the grease will, get a little warm and it's just not flowing right. You got to remember, inside when you pull this key handle back, there's a spring in there that pushes a plunger forward. The plunger rides on the rod, it has a spring behind it, and forces the grease out. If the grease don't want to come out when it's cold like this, one of the things you can do, besides tapping on it, you can tap on it, but you can also do this. You take the head of the grease gun and hold it in front of the exhaust pipe. And what that does is help the grease to warm up enough to flow. Now the grease is flowing now, but it wasn't before. And it doesn't hurt anything. It actually makes it a little nicer in the winter for you to hold it. But that's one way you can help to get the grease to come out of the gun. Big deal to grease equipment. I'll show you where this one is. It's like down in the hole right there. You might not think it's a big deal to grease equipment, but I'm going to tell you something. You're only killing your boss when it comes time to, if you don't grease equipment that someone else owns. Because some of these pins, like a pin this size is probably around 30 bucks just for the pin itself. But if you wear out the bushing, then you got to re-weld that and remanufacture the circle that's in there, and if it's in the arm it's even worse. So the nice thing is if you have somebody that's conscientious and they grease the machine regularly, rather have the machine covered in grease than to have to buy new pins. And every single time that I had to buy a new pin, I already did that. Every single time I had to buy a new pin, when I would go out on the job site and look at the equipment, I would tell the operator about it, you know, because then he would know that I know he's not greasing the equipment properly. Now that's this side is done. There's one up in here, I don't know if I can see it or not. I couldn't. So this side of the bucket's done. We'll go on the other side. And the thing is it doesn't take much to do this, but a lot of guys just don't do it. And let me just tell you, instead of sitting around in the morning smoking your cigarette and drinking your coffee, this is something you should be doing when you work for somebody and you're running equipment. Down inside here where the steering is, this is a kingpin in this old Ford. But you can see there's a grease fitting here, and there's also one down at the bottom right there. There's one in the middle. I'm not going to lay in the snow to get that right now, but there's one down there and one up here. A lot of times when you go to buy an old tractor like this, if you look where the kingpins are, you'll see that it's really loose in there and the pins are wobbling around. These are nice and tight because of giving it proper maintenance. That whether it be your own equipment, whoa, it's pushing here, whether it be your own equipment or someone else's, it's really nice if you take care of stuff, because it's only you that you're putting out of work. on this Ford then, you can see there's recessed fittings so they don't break off. There's fittings that are exposed, and then there's fittings that are hidden down between rods and things so that you can get grease in them. This lower one here are one of the most important ones that usually get forgotten on a Ford, because what happens is they fill up. The grease fitting is actually down inside here. Now I'm not prying on the fitting. What I'm doing is trying to go around and get that frozen dirt out of there. Sometimes it's so frozen you can't get it out. There's a number of ways to defrost this, but just doing it, the fact that you do it, saving yourself money in the long run. On the spreadsheet where it says maintenance item, this is what we're talking about, okay? And it's not just the money for the labor and the grease. What happens is if you don't do this, you end up paying a lot more, and sometimes those prices can be outrageous. Like I say, a pin like this will probably, I could get that pin for $30. I could even make that one out of a grade 8 bolt on a lathe, so it's not a big deal. But if you buy it from New Holland, who has taken Ford over, you could pay upwards of $100 per pin. And not that they always, you know, they go a lot, but if you don't take care of them, they will go. So like I say, I usually put about 3 squirts in there, and I'm pretty good. So that's the loader side of the machine. Now there's some fittings underneath, but the other day when I changed the that hose out, when I was under there, I did whatever greasing I could do, squirted some oil on some different things, and went from there. So when you do the backhoe, I found the best way to stretch it out. So again, on this, like in this pin here, there's a grease fitting in there. Now, I've greased this 100 times already, so that's why I know where they all are. There's also one in here on this machine, down in there. And like I say, that the more that you take care of the machine, the longer these things are going to last you. The machine won't be shaking so much. Like if you notice when I stretched that boom out, there wasn't a lot of play in everything, jerking around and stuff, because it's been greased heavily. You can tell when you're not getting grease in there. See stuff like that, that lob of grease, it's not going into the fitting. It's probably not dug out low enough. You can pretty much tell when it's going to take grease, because if it's, the grease gun should snap a little when you go down on there. Now that took that pretty good. Bottom of this piston. And then at the top of the piston, the low EQ one. I said piston, I meant cylinder. That bucket has to be turned so that I can get at the fitting that's right at the bucket. Those pins, let me just show you this. Everything on the machine from the bottom of the boom all the way around has a grease fitting on all the moving parts. Let's see here. This right here has a grease fitting inside there. This does not. So this whole apparatus here tends to wear a little bit, and there is some play in this because there's no grease fitting in it. But what I do is when I replace the bushings in these, you can actually buy self-oiling bushings that will secrete oil at a microscopic level to help to keep that thing from getting wore out too badly. Otherwise, you can also dump some 90 weight, you know, just 90 weight oil on there. Problem with dumping oil on and everything else is that when you dump it on, you tend to get dirt on it, and the dirt sometimes makes things wear. So it's hard to decide what to do with it, but like I say, I've already put, when I go to replace these bushings, you can get self-oiling bushings. They're pretty neat. I think I saw them for the first time about 3 years ago, and I didn't put them on this bucket, on this machine, but I put them on other machines that I have, and they work pretty nice. So there's also, on the swing there, this Ford swings at the end of the chains. I think I'm pointing at the chain. At the end of the chains, on each side, there's a cylinder. You can see the shiny part right there. The chain itself could be oiled a little bit. I'm not going to worry about it now because I know it's a little bit oily, but underneath the machine, I'm going to pick the boom up. There's a fitting underneath that where the boom attaches to this weight that turns the machine side to side. There's a grease fitting underneath there that I want to do, and there's also some then on this, the stabilizer. There's none down at this end. Okay, there's none on the stabilizer here, but the thing is these stabilizers do not see the kind of action that the machine itself sees. Now, there is on this top one, there's no grease fitting at all. But on this bottom one, there is a grease fitting, so I greased that. And again, you can always just take a ball of 90 weight and just squeeze a little onto the fittings there. Pretty long pin, so this one takes a little extra grease. There's one on the other side as well. This pin has a fitting here and on the other side. There's one in the middle here also that needs to be greased. Now this one sometimes can be a bugger because it's a natural reaction with the backhoe to pull the dirt towards you, because that's what a hoe does. So the problem with that is if you load up dirt in front of the machine, sometimes the fitting gets greased or filled with dirt. So we're in good shape there. And I'll show you what I mean about the 90 weight oil then. Now there's a lot of different ways to do this. I don't need to be arguing with anybody on the comments about it, but this is what I do. What I use is this, Napa 80/85/90. The reason I use this stuff is because anybody who's ever used gear oil knows that this stuff is as sticky as can be. Okay, so what I do is I'll put this on the different fittings that don't have grease. Between the two mating part pieces, Just enough to get some oil down in there. I'm going to do it on both sides with the two pairs. Also this chain that's here. You want to grease that chain up because those cylinders are actually, of all the things on the backhoe that I'm not crazy about, and I shouldn't say all the things, of all the things I like about the backhoe, there's one thing I don't care for, and that's the way that Ford swings the boom. It's two pistons that go in and out. You know, if this one goes in, the other one comes out, and there's a chain there. In the middle of the chain where the links come together, there's two circles where the links are, and a pin goes through there. Recently I lost that pin, maybe about 2 years ago, I shouldn't say recently, but about 2 years I lost the pin while I was digging, and I found out that the pin was $140. Well, instead of buying that pin, I went and bought a 1-inch grade 8 bolt. I think it was 8 inches long. If you cut the threads off, it worked perfect in there. Cut the head off and drill a hole for pins. And that's what I did. It's been in there for 2 years and I haven't had a problem. But you do want to keep that chain oiled up. Same thing with the tops of the stabilizer and the bottom. Actually, even on this very bottom here, which I missed, put some down in there. Lets the pad swing back and forth. And again, this is not a big deal because these pads don't, you know, once they're laying down, you're digging for quite a while. It's not like the rest of the machine that's moving up and down all the time. Bullseye! Stay here, boy. Stay here. Alright, so that part of the bucket that I was telling you about didn't get any, so we're going to lower that down and do that. Let me tell you, equipment operator, something else. And I run equipment, all kinds, and I've also owned it. And what I'm going to tell you is this. Don't be stopping, if you have a fitting that's, a grease fitting that's broke off, don't be stopping a whole crew of people or production to fix a freaking grease fitting, okay? Because that'll cost more than what it costs to do the repair on a sleeve. However, on some of these that don't have a grease fitting, like those two upper ones there, all I do is put some of this 90 weight on here. Put some in here. That one has grease, that has grease. So it's just these two, okay, or actually just this one, yeah. That one has the fitting. So it's this one here that doesn't have the grease fitting. So you just want to, like I said, just squirt a little bit of this 90 weight into the seams of where the pins are and the outside of the pins. It'll help the pins to be able to move a little bit, and you won't have to replace the bushings as quickly. So you understand what I'm saying there. In other words, like, let's say this grease fitting that's over here was not taking grease. There's one underneath there. Let's say it wasn't taking grease. You don't stop working just because a grease fitting is broke. You go ahead and put oil on it. That'll help to keep the joint lubricated until you get the fitting fixed. You can do that off time, or it depends on how your company is. Telemechanic. Yeah, I said off time. You can give the company a couple bucks back. It ain't gonna kill you. Or you can tell the mechanic if you have a service department. So anyway, we're pretty well taken care of with that. Now that'll probably last. I use this machine pretty much, but I don't use it like digging every single day. So if I grease it, I don't know, every month or two, it's usually pretty good. I don't have any problems. Usually the front bucket, because that's what I use the most. If the front bucket squeaks at all, then I'll grease it right away if I can. And that's about it. So I need to power wash this thing, because when that hose blew, man oh man, that thing got oil all over my motor, and I'm afraid that's going to catch fire one of these days. So as soon as spring gets here, I have some cleaner that I bought to clean it. I'll power wash it so I get all that oil off of there. You'd be surprised how fast one of these can burn up once it catches on fire. Alright guys, I hope I didn't bore you too much. That's, you know, if you're working for somebody and you're an equipment operator, this thing is 40 some years old. It's, you know, 1977. I want this machine and I want it taken care of, so, you know, I take care of it. If you have a machine that you're working for someone else and you're the operator, take care of the machine, because when you don't have the machine running, a lot of times guys get sent home, you know, and they don't get any pay. Sometimes they'll put you on something else, but like I say, a lot of times it's home you go. Well, you don't want that. You want to stay working and get your paycheck. Okay guys, thanks. Bye. Also guys, one other thing, I guess 3 other things I got. When I had put the transmission in this truck recently, while I had the truck up on the lift and I was, you know, fooling around underneath there, I greased the fittings that were underneath the truck. When I replaced the brake shoes on my wife's car the other day, I greased the fittings that were underneath, you know, in the steering of that car. A lot of times cars don't have grease fittings. I wish they did, because to me that's one way to make things right. And then the last thing is on these wheels, there's actually grease fittings on those. This morning when I re-welded that other wheel I fixed, I greased those as well. So, you know, in the business, no matter what kind you have, this particular thing that we're doing here is basically our own thing because of getting lumber for the house up there. But we have other things going that need to be taken care of, and you know, this is one way to have people learn how to do it. So I hope this helps somebody, and you recognize, and a testament, you recognize the value of greasing the machine. The other thing I want to say, and then I'll quit, is that when I was moving this machine and opening and closing the bucket, you noticed there was no squealing or squeaking then either. So that's a testament to the fact that it's greased regularly. So the one thing I need to do with these buckets, so both buckets need to have some metal welded to them, the wear plates, because they're really wearing down fast, and I'm not recognizing it because I don't really weld all that much. Or I mean, not weld, but I don't really dig all that much with this particular machine. But I do got to put plates on this and on the bottom of the other front bucket. The wearing plates are the ones that run this direction. The cutting edge that's on there is actually new. I welded that on. It's not a bolt on, but a weld on. I welded that on about 4 years ago, and that thing will probably last another, I don't know, probably 10 years before it needs to be replaced. The other thing I want to do with this machine is raise this exhaust pipe up, because you can see on the side of this, where am I at here? Yeah, on the side of this cylinder, it's all sooty. That's from the exhaust pipe when you raise the bucket. Alright guys, that's it. I gotta go do some other stuff, and I'm sure you're busy as well. Thank you. Well, I guess I'm not done. One other thing I want to say, I try to cover all my bases because anybody who's watching might be able to learn something. The other thing I wanted to say is, you might say, why is he letting that thing run? Well, the reason I'm letting it run is because it's 15 degrees out this morning, and I need this machine here to be able to travel well, and it doesn't want to move right because the transmission oil is a little thick in it, and in the rear end actually, the grease, and it's sort of a little sluggish in moving. So if you let it run, the hydraulics will warm up and it'll help it to move better. Guys, I wanted to show you this cut that yesterday you saw my wife making the cut on here, and that was a brand new blade on there. Now she was a little bit jerky with the controls, and that's, you know, understandable, but pretty much there's a little dip right there, but the log's got a nice straight cut on it there. It's not bad. It's not an eighth of an inch more, over an eighth of an inch gap there. Might look like it because of the sunlight shining through, but really it doesn't. But it's beautiful red oak. Can't get over how beautiful this red oak was, or is, especially all that I've cut up of it over the past 11 years. About 5 trees a year for firewood. Wow. So that's 50 trees I could have had of red oak that just went through the wood stove. Now I just use the flitches, thanks to having the wood miser. Really nice, right? Okay, that's it. Bye.